Just let me know if you can hear me.
Yep.
Awesome. Tia, if that was, I'm just going to ask you to turn your audio down just a very little bit. All right, everybody. Is that my audio? Awesome. Just making sure. Everybody, we're just going to go in alphabetical order. It's one question at a time. Please mute yourself after you received your answer, just to give everyone that quality. Melody, we're going to start with you. We're going to follow with Rick, Stephanie, and then Tia. All right, let's just go.
Right.
Thank you. This is roundtable 2, group 8.
Hi, Daniel. What
Hi.
initially drew you to the Weeping Monk character?
Well, there were a couple of things. One was Tom and I had sat down and talked about who he was and what his kind of backstory was and how he had come to be the way he was. And I was very interested in that. I was very interested in him telling a story of somebody without words, and having to kind of have narrate a human being without using any expression of kind of saying what's happened, but to kind of let that be an internal process that you watch. And then an added kind of thing of Frank Miller's kind of aesthetic and mind, and I think all of those put together, I was just very intrigued by this world and by what they were going to do, and I was very interested in kind of being this very misunderstood, enigmatic character that doesn't say a lot. That was kind of all those things made me kind of go, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick Marshall from Digital Trends. So with this character here, you had a career that's gone from really early on to a movie like Immortals with crazy effects and that sort of thing, to doing a lot of stage productions now as well, and a lot of smaller, more personal sort of things. Where does Cursed fit in for you? How did you change the way you approach things with something like Cursed, where it's sort of a mix between the characters and big effects type things?
Yeah, I think that when I first kind of started Rick, I was amazed at how big the production was for this. Like it's insane studio space and the locations and what they built, and so the scale of it was so massive, and the kind of aesthetic of it had been thought of in such detail. I mean, my costume, for example, was stuff that you don't even see, but that is so detailed, from the lacing to the kind of patterning and the materials used. And then I was aware that there were just that this was a big world that I was entering, and so within that huge world, it then becomes really important to kind of make it's important to make it, the character, live in that world, and sometimes that can be very difficult. You have to kind of really give the character his backstory. You have to kind of fight for your character in some way in this world, and you have to find how he fits into the jigsaw of this massive production. And so you do have to approach it a bit differently. You have to be a bit bigger and a bit more, kind of give yourself up to it a little bit more than you would, and make sure. I mean, I remember working the first day with Father Carden, played by Peter Mullen, and he kind of had this whole thing, this grand thing, and I remember thinking, okay, right, we're really in this. To match that, we really got to go. We got to both go into this. and there's a commitment to it. You just have to commit yourself to it, and that was definitely like, well, the first day we were shooting, I just thought, okay, right, you just got to commit, and it may be totally wrong, but you can't do anything but commit.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you may follow.
Hi, I'm Stephanie from Geeks Worldwide. So bouncing off of what you mentioned to do with the detailing on the costume, so it does look quite authentic to the period, and also like it might be a bit difficult to move in. So was there any challenge in moving around when it came to fight scenes and that sort of stuff?
Stephanie, it was a mad costume. I mean, it was beautiful, and like it took an hour and a half to lace up my boots and my the hood and the thing, and it's stunning when you put it on, and it weighs a lot. But there are a few things that, like, it gets wet, and so when it gets wet and muddy and you're trailing it around, it puts on an extra like 5, 6, 7 pounds, and so you kind of end up kind of getting tossed around by this cape, and then I'm also like you can't balance very well because you're constantly off kilter, and you can't see, so all of those things together is my way of having the excuse of not having lots of outtakes of me falling over, because this thing was like, you can't see anybody, it can really like mess with your equilibrium. So there was a lot of me like stepping. People would step on my cloak and you'd kind of go, oof, you get pulled back, or you would my sword would kind of get lost in tangle of cloak and my hood, and so I was quite a deadly kind of actor to work with, because either I would stab you with my sword or you would end up kind of tugging me around. So the whole thing was it looks cool on camera, but there's definitely plenty of outtakes of me looking less than cool.
Yeah, you may follow. I'm just going to interrupt really quickly. Daniel, audio just asking if you can speak up just a little bit.
Oh.
Just a little bit. You don't have to turn anything up, but you can just speak up a little bit just to make sure the audio is good.
Okay. Cool.
You may go ahead.
Cool. My name is Tia from Geek Vibes Nation. Daniel, fantastic job all around. The Weeping Monk is such a dark character, causes so much carnage throughout season 1. Was there ever a scene that you felt was a little difficult to film, say emotionally, morally, anything like that?
Not, I guess, because I knew where I had talked with Tom about what had happened beforehand, so there was a sense that like he was devoid of any empathy or any ability to relate, and so once you're in that headspace, I guess everything morally becomes acceptable, because there is no sense of and in order to get there must have been an insane amount of trauma, right? So to be completely irrelated like that. So I never found anything particularly like morally difficult, because I was just like, well, this is what I think of as survival, and then by the end, I think what is interesting about the script is there are certain lines that he won't cross. So he won't ever kill a child. But you see why. You kind of understand why that is, because in some kind of Jungian, Freudian thing, there is a sense of his own child being the thing that he's protecting or whatever. So I was something kind of cool about that. And I was interested by like what that line was. He could do anything. He could kill anything. But like a child that looked like him or whatever, he couldn't do that. And so there was something kind of like psychologically interesting about that. So and playing those characters, all you have to do to kind of get around any moral thing is just to understand how someone will get like that, So I was like,
yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you.
All right, Melody, you may follow.
Did you find that it was a very collaborative environment with the directors and writers? And then as an actor, were you able to give creative input regarding your character?
Yeah, I mean, it actually really was. I think Tom and Frank had come up with a framework of what this looked like, and obviously the book. But I had certain things that I really wanted for the character. You know, like I took out a lot of his lines because I just didn't want him to talk as much. I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was very. I didn't think we needed them to tell his story. So Tom was really great about that. He just went and he agreed with me, and we just took him out, and that was really cool. Like I felt like he kind of trusted me to know that I wasn't kind of trying to get out of learning lines, or trying to shirk my responsibility, but that I felt that I knew I'd kind of work. It took me a while to work out who he was, but I felt like I could work it out, and he and I had talked a lot about who he was and how he expressed himself, and therefore I think he kind of left it to me to be able to go and do it. But largely that's because I don't say a lot, and also I kind of come in at various moments, so I feel like he kind of left that to me a little bit, and so that was a nice responsibility.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah. So when you're approaching a character like this, where there is some background for it, there is a book with art even in it here. Did that present sort of was that challenging? Did you approach any different, looking at the fact that there is drawings of characters, there's art that you can kind of base things from? How does that change your approach to things? And did you feel any sort of obligation to make it look like the art?
Yeah, no, this is going to sound bad, but I largely take all of that stuff and kind of I try and understand what the essence of it is, and then throw it all away, because you have to kind of get the essence, whatever the essence is, hopefully by casting you or trusting you with it, they know that you have that essence. And so like with any kind of character, it becomes yours because you play into some degree of that being your character, and then allowing the expression from there to be whatever it is and to be yours. And so I'd read the manuscript, I'd read part of the scripts, and largely actually the ideas of Tom kind of coincided what my ideas were. We talked a little bit about a movie called Seven Samurai, a Kurosawa movie, and there's a scene in it where this guy's like running at him. The hero of the story just does one movement and kills this man, and it's a very iconic scene. And we kind of talked about that being his expression, the way he was in his soul, and I really liked that. I could take that and then kind of run with it, and so I kind of understood him through some of the images that Tom and I talked about, but largely, yeah, I kind of took the story and then kind of ran with my own version of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you can follow.
So the Weeping Monk is not a character that was in the original legend. It's more of a modern addition to it. So how do you feel this character adds to the the legend as a whole, and how the audience might resonate with the story?
Yeah. He's not obviously an original character, although his as you find out toward the end, his backstory has some involvement with the original story. So there's a bit of a challenge to bring his original life to this story. But it's quite nice to be able to play a character that that has no preconceptions about them. You know, you kind of get to play around in that, and the audience get to kind of believe it for a while. So I think it's kind of an interesting character, and then as more gets revealed, you see why he's kind of caught up in this world, which makes it just adds another layer to him and the storytelling that's going on.
Go ahead, Tia.
Yeah, so without any spoilers, we find something out in the last episode of the season. Were you originally aware of this when you first got the script, or was it something that you had learned later, perhaps while filming?
No, I knew. So I knew where he'd end up. I just knew I had a certain amount of scenes to get there, without a lot of words, and that was always like that was like what I really liked about it, is like I've got to get from here to here, and I've got to maybe 6 lines to get there, and a load of other expressions, but so that was my challenge. I really liked that. You know? I really liked. I like the surprise. You know, I like subverting an idea of what we think of certain characters, and so the reveal at the end just gave me a direction to go in. You know.
Yeah, I like the reveal too. So awesome.
Thank you.
Melody?
What was the most challenging scene for your character?
Well, the final episode was really challenging, only because there's a lot of there's a lot of things that kind of come to the fore for him. So there's a very physical moment and then an emotional moment that all meet each other, and so the last episode is challenging because it's a hard thing to kind of physically be run down into the ground and to get somewhere, and then on top of that, for an emotionality to out of somebody that's so bound to get to that point, takes a lot out of you. You know, you're physically and you're mentally been holding on to this thing, and the last few scenes you have to kind of express a sense of a leaking out of your true self, which is always challenging and really hard to do a lot. So the last scenes are like, you know, we'd done 10 months at that point. I mean, it was one of the last days. So your sense of like, wow, this is 10 months of working with this and going through this and keeping the secret, keeping who he is, and keeping this whole thing kind of under wraps, and then it leaking out at the end, and that's, you know, it's fun. I mean, it's great fun, but it's tough.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about the experience of working with Netflix on this? Because they have a very different sort of approach when they release everything, you know, all at once. And it's a little bit different from, you know, working on normal productions for TV or broadcast or film.
Yeah. I mean, they were Netflix, I felt, were really great on this. They largely kind of gave us the platform and the resources to make this story. And then I think I've done a really good job in promoting and kind of putting great collaborators together, you know, Tom and Frank, and then great costume people. You know, they kind of, Netflix have an ability to put together some amazing kind of partnerships and collaborations, and it's kind of one of the cool things about working with a company not like Netflix is they can, you know, if something isn't working, they can bring in somebody who's, you know, done something spectacular on their other show, and, you know, bring that person in to collaborate with, you know. So there's there's a reason why they know what they're doing. You know, they've got great contacts, and then they just have enough resources to be able to really promote talented artists and put them together. And that's I think that's really like the benefit of having a huge company like that put something together, is that they can bring together people and, you know, pay people to kind of tap into their artistic brain and kind of come up with something. And I think that's what I felt. I've worked with Netflix on a few things, and so I've always felt like they're very kind of hands-on and hands off in the right way. And they kind of put people together and then kind of let you collaborate. So that's kind of cool.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that was time. So thank you very much. You guys did great.
Awesome.